All right, so today with me, I got David Kitchen, and we met through a podcast. Kind of get a guest and jump on a podcast, which is cool because I got to have a little introduction with him for about 20 minutes or so, and I think we went a little longer than that, if I'm right. But so it was good. It was really good. Um, so I know a little bit about David, and he's come on the podcast to share more about his journey in life, and he can share what he's doing to help others and stuff right now. So to begin, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself now, and then we can go backwards if you want and to see how you got to where you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, definitely, man. Like I said, I'm always an open book. I say show up scars and all, man. So I'm always here to tell the story. But who I am now, my name's David Kitchen. Everybody calls me Kitch. I think the only person left that calls me by my first name is my mother, and that's only when I'm in trouble. So everybody else just refers to me as Kitch, man. But I'm the founder and president of Edge Leadership Academy, and I'm sure we'll get into kind of what we do. But 30,000 foot view, broad strokes. I'm a leadership consultant. I'm a leadership coach, and I'm a former Division I athletics coach. So that's kind of, I've always identified as a coach for probably the past 12 years of my life, 10 years of my life, I guess. But aside from all those things, man, I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm a friend. I'm an avid weightlifter, avid fisherman, and so that's kind of who I am. Also a dog dad, love my pit bull. So that's kind of the broad strokes of who I am now. But we can dive into all the details as we kind of get rolling here and fill in the blanks.
Yeah, let's start with that. So, you're in the leadership, and that doesn't just come up to somebody and they go, "Hey, I just want to jump in and start doing leadership," right? So let's go back to as far as you can think, to where something like that might have said, "Hey, this it triggered you to say, I'm going to go down this road."
I think the seed was planted really early, honestly. So to kind of give you context to that, the backstory behind it, when I was in high school, I was fortunate to be a part of a really good football program. Fortunate to be a good player on a great team and ride some coattails. But I was one of the few guys that played all 3 years, meaning I was a starter on the varsity team, starting as a sophomore all the way through. So I had the opportunity to play in some really big games, be part of, some state runs and different things like that. So my senior year rolled around and we always had a vote for captain. And so we had the vote. And a couple days later, I get called down to my coach's office during school. And I'm like, oh, this is it. Like, he's going to put the C on my jersey. This is a no brainer. I thought for sure I was one of like two guys that played all 3 years. And, I was playing on both sides of the ball, and I was, highly recruited at that point in my career. So I'm like, no brainer. I'm going to go down here and get this C. This is going to be awesome. And I went in his office and he said, take a seat. And I'm like, already, this does not feel like the way this is supposed to go, and so he looked at me and he said, let me ask you a question. I need you to be honest with me. I said, okay. And he said, did you vote for yourself? And I said, no. And he said, okay, do you want to change your vote? And I was like, no, I don't think so. Like, and again, in my mind, I'm still thinking like, this is a no brainer. This is a test. Like, he's messing with me. And he said, okay. He said, you missed it by one vote and you're not a captain. And I was silent. I was shocked. I was angry. I was a lot of things, right? But what he said next is why I say I think the seed was planted early, because he looked at me and he said, Kitch, that C in this moment does not define you as a leader. What you do next defines who you are as a leader. And so I think that's where it started. And then kind of I went through my life. You go through life's twists and turns and the journey. And then I was in coaching and I had a young man come in my office, and he was the best leader that I had ever coached. And I was coaching at a Division I institution. He's now getting paid a lot of money to play his sport. And he came in my office and he said, Coach, I've been the best player on every team I've ever been on. And everybody's always telling me to lead, but nobody ever taught me how. And that was like the light bulb moment for me. Like, that was it, because I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Let me start connecting the dots here. I've been in leadership roles. I've been a coach. I've now worked my way to Division I. Nobody ever taught me how to lead either. Right. There's no playbook to this. And so I leaned back on my sports psychology background. I immediately went back to school and started working on my PhD in psychology. And I basically did the opposite of what most academic people do, meaning they get the education first and then they layer the experience on top of it. I had the experience and now I was layering the education on top of that. And so I kind of reversed engineered the process of what these main traits of leaders were and what the journey to becoming a leader looked like. And I did it through the research, and then I connected it to anecdotes and experiences that I had had throughout my coaching experience and throughout my coaching career. And so what I was left with was this really neat curriculum that almost became a step-by-step guide on how we can take young men, young women, sales managers, salesmen, doesn't matter who it is, and we can walk people through this process of building the traits that are necessary to become a leader. And we can build these traits, and then at each layer of, the leadership pyramid, so to say, the traits get a little bit more specialized and the curriculum and the experiences have to be a little bit more specialized, but the way that you can apply the principles becomes more general. So it's this really paradoxical situation, but it's a really cool thing. And I nerd out on this. So I really love talking about it. It fires me up because I think it's such a cool thing. But as I went through that journey and I put that curriculum together, I was able to then retrace it backwards in my own life and be like, oh, this is where this principle showed up. This is where I learned self-awareness. This is where I learned character. This is where I learned discipline. This is where I learned consistency, creativity, communication, all the different things that are necessary to be a leader. And I was able to kind of reverse that. And what it left me with was almost this story story of my life with all these different stops and all the lessons that I learned along the way. And so it really turned into a really cool project. And it birthed the business that I have now.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So what kind of parts in your life that you did experience those parts of the leadership besides that one seed that you just mentioned?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, one that sticks out immediately was I was raised in a single parent household, never met my biological father. And when I was growing up, I never had to build character, right? And it's what I mean by that is character was almost forced upon me through obligations. And so what I'm saying is my mom was working so much that I had to raise my brother, right? I had to help raise my brother. I shouldn't say I raised my brother. I didn't. She did a big part of it, but I helped. And I had to be the rock of the family. And I had a lot of responsibilities that forced me to grow up at a really young age. But I don't think I ever had the foundational principles behind why I was acting so responsibly at that age. And so what happened was when I got to college, those responsibilities were now gone. I didn't have to take care of my brother anymore. I didn't have to be on the straight and narrow. Nobody was there watching me. And so I started to act like a knucklehead. And all these things that I had kind of avoided growing up because of the responsibilities that I had at home, I now leaned into, meaning being the angry kid, getting in fights, partying, being late, missing things, academics going down the drain, all the things that I avoided as a young kid when most people go through them, I avoided it until I got to college. And I had a conversation with my coach in college because, again, I was highly recruited coming out of high school. I got hurt, ended up at a really small school. And so I'm walking in there thinking I should be the man. There should be no question about this. And I get there and I'm not playing, and I don't play at all. I did not start a single game in my college career. And I get there and we're about halfway through my freshman year and I can't figure it out. I'm like, why am I not playing? I feel like I'm better than these guys here from a raw talent standpoint, but I was a nightmare off the field. I couldn't be trusted, right? So I never built the character. And so I remember my coach speaking with me specifically. I came in his office like a bat out of heck, all upset. I want to talk about why I'm not playing. And he said to me, Kitch, at some point, you have to learn to be the guy instead of being that guy. And that was a moment for me that stood out to me that, oh, I have to learn character. I have to learn discipline. I have to learn how to take responsibility for my own actions and not blame the outside world and not blame the circumstances. And I can't just live this free life and just say nothing is my fault. I have to take responsibility for my actions and start to pick up the pen and write my own story. Right. And so that's a specific moment in my life where I'm like, oh, okay, that's where I started to build character. Like that was it. Right. And I can point to other examples just throughout the journey of similar moments, not always that profound, but similar moments where I can look at it and I can say, okay, that's kind of where I started to build that skill. And then it built into this, and this is the result of it. Right. And so I think if you look in your life and you look back, you can really see, and it's very counterintuitive because it's easy to see on the surface, but if you think about it, it's really interesting how you become the sum of your experiences, right? And how you learn certain lessons and your ability to pull lessons. And I think this is where people get stuck in the journey for self-improvement, and the journey for becoming the best version of themselves, is we get stuck in repeating lessons because we don't pull the feedback out of the situations. Right. So you look at you're the sum of your experiences, but if you don't learn from that experience, you're going to repeat it. Right. Like, what do they say? If we don't learn from our history, we're doomed to repeat it. It's the same concept in our lives. Right. And lucky for me, I was fortunate to, not all the time, trust me, there's a lot of mistakes I've made, and a lot of mistakes I continue to make as a business owner, as a man, as a lot of things. But I was able to pull things from there along the journey and add them to my toolbox. And as I got further down the road and my toolbox got bigger and bigger, I was able to navigate situations better because I built those foundational pieces first, and then I just added new tools on top of them.
Yeah. And so, I'm sorry, you had these coaches, right? And it sounds like the coaches were a lot of your experiences along where you found out leadership was probably the way you were going to go, right? That's what it sounds like. You just shared two of them. Maybe there's more, maybe there's less. I have no idea. But that, and then what do you reach out and besides coaches and stuff, just for sports and everything, did you reach out to anybody else like in a different area besides going to school for like psychology and everything like that? Like, did you have other coaches, mentors in different areas?
Absolutely. Yeah. When I graduated school, I actually worked for a cloud solutions company. And so I sold IT and cloud solutions to small and medium-sized businesses. So I had the opportunity to be in the corporate world for a while. And one of my bosses there, Dino Dodona, was a phenomenal guy, a phenomenal mentor to me. He taught me the ropes of sales. He taught me resiliency. He taught me the ability to take a no and get excited about it instead of taking it as this is the end of the road. Right. And he also taught me I'm trying to think of the best way to frame this. He taught me how to take advantage of my creativity. Right. And so what I mean by that is most people in the office that I was working in we get these lists that were like cold call lists, right? And you had to call out and you try and sell people stuff over the phone, and then you set a face-to-face meeting, and then you go from there. Most people would go through their list, and as soon as they heard no, they would just scratch the name off and move on to the next list. Obviously not physically scratch it off. It was on a computer, but you get the feeling. What I would do is if somebody would say no on the phone, I would put them on a separate list. And then the rest of the week, so first day I would make all my phone calls on Monday. The rest of the week I would go out and drive, and I would go to these places face to face, because I was like, if you're going to tell me no on the phone, let's see if you'll say no to my face. Right. And the other part was, you never know. You might just catch somebody in a bad mood. They don't know you. It's hard to connect with somebody on the phone. There's a lot of variables that go into it. So I went out and I'd start doing this every week. And eventually Dino found out about it because people were saying, hey, Kitch is not in the office. Like, this dude's gone. Like, what is this? He comes to work on Monday and then we don't see him. Right. And there was other reps that went out and hit the road, but not like I did. And so he did a ride along basically with me, and he saw what I was doing. And instead of scolding me or saying, hey, that's not how we do things here, like, he leaned into it and he was like, hey, is this working? Like, let me see some of your rates. What's going on? Blah, 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 blah. And he supported it. Right. And so that kind of taught me, oh, there's different ways to skin a cat, right? And it's okay to be outside the box. It's okay to do things a little bit differently. You don't have to follow everybody else's path, right? And I'm the new guy. The other people that are sales rep there are career guys and girls. I mean, these are people that have been selling for 15, 20 years and are highly successful at it. And I'm the new guy, and I'm out here just laughing in the face of their systems, basically, right? And instead of scolding me and telling me to fall in line, he kind of let me figure it out on my own, and he let me work out my own system. So, that, and again, I talked about this, the C's of leadership, right? There's creativity right there, and so again, it's looking back on your life and you're able to connect the dots, which is really cool.
And that's awesome that he allowed you to do that, because if that, like most bosses, they would probably say, don't do this, right? And then that
Yeah,
just
that's not how we do this
make you
here.
put your head, yeah, make you put your head down, and yeah, you ain't gonna grow like that, right? So that's really cool. So that being said, how important do you find mentors, coaches, consultants, whatever you want to call them, to help guide you and others?
Oh my gosh. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be here if I didn't have mentors and coaches. Throughout my coaching career, so I had a 10-year career in college coaching, strength and conditioning. Every step of the way was thanks to a mentor. Every step of the way. And then as I moved up, this is the piece that I think is really important. I think once you get to a certain level, you should always be in a mentor and a mentee relationship. So meaning you should be being mentored by somebody and you should be mentoring somebody else. So as soon as you start to figure it out and you're starting to see the results, now again, you have to have the results first before you start teaching it to other people. But once you get to that point, I think it's so important to have somebody above you that's where you want to be and somebody below you that's learning from you. And I think that that's the balance of high performance. I think that's something that tells me a lot about people. And so even now, as an entrepreneur, I work with 3 coaches. I have a mindset coach, I have a business coach, I have speaking coaches that I work with that are all my mentors. And then below me, I have mentorship groups that I run and that I'm in charge of. And so I'm constantly seeking that out because I looked at it from this lens, especially as I got older and I got to the higher levels of coaching. The higher up I got, the more I heard these elite coaches and elite athletes talking about their coaches and their mentors. And I'm like, oh, if these dudes are the best of the best and they have coaches, well, I for sure better get a coach, right? I for sure better get a coach because to be completely honest, when I think about myself, I look at myself and I say, I'm not special. I just work hard. Like I've said that before, I'm not exceptionally intelligent. I'm not exceptionally charming. I'm not exceptionally anything except maybe good looking, right? I'm not exceptional in any of those categories, right? I just work hard. I just put my head down. I work really hard. I try really hard and I don't give up. So for me to get an edge, I need to be around people who are special, and who do have things figured out. And so, yeah, for me, man, mentors and coaches they're a cheat code. And especially in today's society, when everybody is one direct message away, everybody is one email away, there's no excuse to not have a mentor or a coach in your life that's helping you walk the path.
It's great. And I asked this question because personally, I've collectively got coaches and stuff as well. And, having you and some other guests come on, it provides that information, just like you said, email, whatever. It's just that one piece. Somebody might need your information just to take it from here and go further, you know? Yeah. So you keep leveling up in a way, right? So you get to somebody's, their max, and then you just try to find somebody higher than that. I do like the mentee and the mentor thing that you explained. So through your career or your business right now, you are teaching others while you're still learning from somebody else. Now, how's that? I get that, but I mean, like, does it feel kind of weird in a way? Like, because you feel like you don't know everything yet,
I know I don't know everything. I never will, right? And that's the piece of it. So the things that I teach people are things that I absolutely know beyond a shadow of a doubt to be true, that have been tried and tested. So for instance, if my business coach teaches me a principle, I don't turn around and teach that in my group the next day. I don't understand it well enough. I haven't tried it. I haven't tested it out. I haven't iterated on it and made it my own. I don't do that. And so like, I don't offer business coaching services. I've only been in business for 3 years. That's not my job yet. I'm not, could I teach you the basics probably and get your business off the ground? Yeah, I know the basics of selling, marketing, finance, all that stuff. I could build the outline, but there's other people that are very better suited than me to teach you that stuff. When it comes to leadership, I built my own toolbox, and then I spent 10 years teaching student athletes this and building cultures and building systems of leaders in athletic programs. And then within that, I was in charge of an internship program at every stop that I was at. So every university I was at, one of the first things I did was implement an internship program where we brought young coaches in and we taught them and I mentored them for up to a year to 2 years if they wanted to stay that long. And those people that I've mentored are now at places like the University of Oregon, Philadelphia Eagles, University of Miami, University of Houston. I mean, they're in big time jobs and doing big time things. And so it's like, okay, it worked, right? That system worked. And so the things that I don't teach anything that I haven't done myself to a level where I've seen the results. If I haven't played the film out all the way, I have no business teaching it to people. And I think that there's a lot of people out there right now, especially in today's society, where you can go online. Like if you Google mindset coach, business coach, life coach, relationship coach, dating coach, texting coach, there's a coach for everything, right? You have to sift through and you have to figure out, has this person done it or are they just trying to teach it? Because those are two very, very different things. You can be an entrepreneur coach. If you've never built a business, I don't want anything to do with it. So when I'm looking for coaches, I'm looking for people, first off, and this is kind of a not a hard and fast rule, but something that I do look at and I use it as a gauge. If the majority of your income comes from coaching and you haven't already done the thing, I'm a little skeptical. Like if 90% of your income comes from teaching other people how to do it, but you like, so for instance, if you're a podcast coach and 90% of your income comes from podcast coaching, and yet your podcast is not at XYZ level and you don't have this many listens and you don't have the social proof to prove to me that you actually know how to do it, then I think that that's sketchy, right? And so I never wanted to be that. I never wanted to be a snake oil salesman. I never wanted to do that. The other thing I don't ever want to be is a guru, meaning I don't want to be so far removed from the action that I'm just preaching from a mountaintop, right? Like I like being in that mentor relationship and being in that coaching relationship where I can still openly admit to people, I am walking through the same valley you are. I'm not preaching from the mountaintop. I'm walking through the valley. I'm just a couple steps ahead of you with a flashlight. That's the only difference, and I tell the people that I work with now, my mentees, like, you will get to the information. I'm not smarter than you. You would get there. I just read the book first. I put it into action first. I have more experience. That's all. That's all I'm doing is I'm teaching you from my experiences and I'm teaching you backed with the psychology research. And you know what I mean? The things that the seeds that I've planted that I've now seen the fruit of them. And I can tell you whether the fruit is good or the fruit is rotten. And there's been some plants that I've planted that the fruit came out rotten. Right. And so I can help you avoid those seeds. So that's my approach to it. So is it weird? I don't know. I don't know. I think when I was a young coach, it was because I was still figuring it out, and so I think, but once I started to see the experience behind it and I started to see the results, you get the courage of your convictions because now you're like, no, I know this to be true because I've seen it over and over and over again.
Yeah, well, the way you explained it there, as you're learning something, but you're not processing it and using it yourself first. Say it was 90 days or a year, right, to see the results. Then that makes sense. I can see that not affecting anything. So I mean that's great that you shared that. I appreciate it. So who do you actually help? I mean, so you're big into leadership, but is there a certain area or clients that you're looking for?
Yep, we have three legs to our business. So the primary leg that pays the bills, so to say, is our corporate leg. And so within that, we work with entrepreneurs. We also work with C-suite execs, senior management, mid-level management. And then we also have like keynote addresses and workshops that we do for like sales forces and different people within the front lines of the business. So that is primarily, like I said, workshops, keynotes, maybe some one-on-one executive coaching. We do some of that as well. And then on the other side, we have our athletic side. So we work with both coaches and players. So it's pretty cool. We've built out programs and curriculums that we'll do captains classes where we'll take all the kids on a team that are captains or leaders, so to say. We'll take them through a curriculum over 6, 8, 12 weeks, whatever it is. We do one-off workshops. We coach the coaches. Like we went down to the University of Miami last year with their football program, spent some time with their staff and did a workshop on leadership and how to connect with people, how to communicate, how to build relationships and build a culture. We work with administration. We've done some culture rebrand stuff. And then in the middle of those two legs, we have what we call the High Performance Network, which is actually in the process of being rebranded as the Tribe. And that's our mentorship programs. That's our one-on-one coaching for individuals and high performers. And so anybody that like, say you're super interested in leadership and high performance, but your organization isn't ready to spend that budget, or your team doesn't have the budget to bring us in, you can step into that middle area individually and seek that out, right? Or maybe you don't want your employer to know that you're doing it. That I've had that happen before, where it's like, hey, I'm going to start looking for a job in 6 months, but I want to brush up these skills before I go out into the market, right? And so we'll coach you up. And so it's kind of like I said, yes, we're deep into leadership, but we also work in the areas adjacent to leadership, meaning culture, meaning high performance, right? So we think of things as leadership, culture, habits, results. That's the pathway. That's the formula to success. And so we work on each of those steps, and we can do that with businesses as well as individuals and teams.
Okay. And do you do this virtually or or in
Both.
person? Both.
Both. Yeah. When we first started, a lot of it was virtual. When we do the long-term engagement, so like a 6 or 8 or 12 week thing where we're meeting once a week, that's usually like some of those are virtual just because it's not practical for us to be getting on a plane every week to fly to Texas or to fly, wherever. But we do a lot of the corporate stuff in person. A lot of that is virtual or is live. We'll fly out, especially like companies that have regional meetings, companies that have national meetings, things like that. We'll come into those and either speak the keynote, or we'll be part of the daily agenda where they'll have workshops, and we'll maybe split people up. So when I say we, I mean me and my business partner will come in, and maybe he'll take the salesman and he'll do sales training, and I'll take the managers and I'll cover the leadership, and then we'll bring everybody together and we'll do culture. So we might spend 6 hours or 4 hours with a group, but it's kind of split up into different pieces.
Okay. And what's the best way for somebody to contact you?
Yeah, I mean, we keep it simple. It's edgeleadershipacademy.com. I'm at Coach D Kitch on every single social media. I am always available to people. I don't like to make anything complicated. Just reach out to us, kind of tell us what you have going on, and then from there, like, we build solutions for people. That's the big thing that we try and do. So sometimes it gets a little sketchy when people ask, like, what do you do? And I'm like, literally, like, we come in and we try and add as much value as we possibly can. We'll figure out what that's going to be packaged like as we figure out your needs and your pain points.
So you customize it then for that
Yeah, it's
individual.
a lot of I don't believe in I don't think leadership and culture and performance are things that you can have cookie cutter answers for. It's just I think you're a liar if you have this solution that works for every scenario. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. There's certain, you go into an organization, and so this is why I'm so big on like our pre-screening process, where I want to talk to the senior leaders. I want to talk to people and get a feel, so that when I go in there, I know what are the main things that I want to hit on, because our curriculum, we have 30 different presentations that we're prepared to give at any time. How often do we give a full presentation? Very rarely. I'll take pieces of this, and I combine them and make a customized solution for that situation, right? So maybe your team doesn't need a whole talk on leadership personas. Maybe you guys know who you are. You're all seasoned veterans in leadership. So maybe I'll just refresh on that, and we'll talk more about accountability, or we'll talk more on goal setting. So it's kind of more, like I said, very customizable. Everything is very customizable, because I don't think that a cookie cutter approach works when you're talking about literally the people business.
Yeah. So you're learning what their strengths and their weaknesses are, and then work around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't like to put people in boxes, right? I think some of the I know there's validity to like the DISC assessment and the different personality tests are out there, Enneagrams and all the Briggs Meyer, all the things that people want to take, and HR wants to make you take. That's great. It's phenomenal. It gives you a snapshot of a human. I am not summed up by a single color and by a single, set of letters that they assign to me. Like, that's just it oversimplifies a very complicated and complex system, right? And so I think in order to give respect and give the most value to the humans who are on the other end of our service, we have to customize it. We have to get a feel for what's going on, and we have to be able to build a solution that makes sense for that environment.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can see all that. Yeah. So thank you. I appreciate sharing that part. Now I have one question I ask every podcast guest. And so what are 3 key things you learned and used along your journey?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man. What are 3 key things that I learned and used along my journey?
Yeah.
Number 1, take big swings. The number one thing that I've learned along my journey is if you don't bet big, you'll never win big. It's not possible, right? And on the flip side of that, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. Like whatever the potential downfall or the potential risk of it is, short of death, financial loss, things like that, it's never going to be that bad, right? And so take huge swings. Like the older I've gotten and the more I've gotten into this business piece of it, like I just am such a firm believer in just taking massive action because I think it leads to so much opportunity. Listen, you might strike out. You might. There's been a lot of times where I walk back to the dugout looking like an idiot, but I learned something about myself. I learned something about my approach, and I may have gotten an opportunity on the way because maybe there's a guy in the stands that watched and said, hey, that dude's got a hell of a swing. Let's bring him on board for an opportunity, right? You never know. And so that's number one. Number two is that successful people are not special. People that are ultra wealthy, people that are ultra, successful by the traditional metrics are not special. They have a set of skills. They've identified what their strengths are, and then they've built systems and processes in their lives that allow them to highlight their strengths, double down on those things, and they make the easy choices the good choices, and they make bad choices the hard choices to make. So what they're doing is they get really good at decreasing the likelihood of failure. And anybody can do that, right? So successful people are not special. Remove that. Remove that idea. I think that really hurts people. And the third thing that I've learned that I've used along my journey is that vulnerability is strength. Your ability to show up as your true self and your ability to be at peace with the person in the mirror and be willing to have the hard conversations with yourself and do the work internally will massively, massively, massively increase your ability to make an impact in the world. Like your ability to show up and just own your story and just say, hey, this is who I am. These are the things I've experienced. This is the truth about me. People will respect it. People will want to do business with you. And not only that, you'll be able to look at yourself in the mirror and you'll feel there's a sense of peace that comes over you when you walk in a room and you never have to think about what mask you're going to put on. Like, I'm just going to show up as me every single day. Are there people that don't like me? Absolutely. I'm sure there are. And I apologize for that. But I'm not, I'm going to continue to try and be the best version of me. And that means that I'm going to show up vulnerably. That means I'm going to make mistakes. That means I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to admit when I'm wrong. I'm going to set hard boundaries, right? But I'm going to show up as me every single day, 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. Doesn't matter, rain, sleet, snow. I'm the same dude every single day, just chasing some version of the best version of me, trying to do something a little bit better every day. But yeah, I think there's so much strength in vulnerability and being willing to ask for help and admit that you don't have all the answers and just show up scars and all every day.
Yeah, I think that's a big word that's been coming out more and more often lately. Yeah, I've heard it in a lot of groups that I'm in and everything else. And so it's coming, you know what I mean? It's slowly growing. But yeah, I agree with you.
Takes time.
Yeah,
It takes time.
Just be yourself. Yeah, it does.
And it's hard,
it's hard.
man. It's so hard. Nobody likes to feel rejected. Like, we're humans. Like, we don't like that. There's
Exactly.
always that feeling of like, what if somebody doesn't like me? Or what if they don't accept me? Like that's hard, but there also comes a piece where it's like, if they don't accept me or they don't like me, then it's not meant for me. Right? Now, does it mean that you can not be self-aware and not work on the things that you need to work on? No, right? You're still responsible for that piece of it, but there's the flip side of it too, where you come to a place of acceptance and living the best version of your life, whatever that is.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey and what you're doing to help others. So thank you.
Dude, thank you, man. This was fun. You do a good job with this. Do a good job building the platform, asking the right questions, and bringing the right things out. So I had a ton of fun. Love to do it again sometime. So if there's ever anything I can do for you, man, please let me know.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.